Hello and welcome to the Social Good Podcast with Ayush and Pranav. This is episode 4. We're talking about work. For the last four weeks, we've been speaking about work and how it started, work and money and purpose and meaning. How it started from the hunter-gatherer days uh, to the agricultural age, the industrial age, to today's modern internet knowledge age, as they call it. And now we're looking at where we go from here, how what the future holds for us. The big concept, I think I'm just trying to recollect and recapture what we've learned so far, is that everything, all social systems that we know so far, end up becoming big pyramids, where either the rich get richer or the poor get poorer, or more in the sense of that power basically colludes, or the power concentrates towards the edges of the pyramid, uh, and which is again harmful for society, as I understand, as I feel. So the natural conversation, the natural extension of that, looking at a solution, was that how do we break this pyramid, right? Or maybe we are not able to break this pyramid. Maybe we can cap this pyramid. Not And I love the sports analogy that we got to last week, where everyone can run a race, everyone can run 100 meters, and that's how our social races should be, probably. That once you've got like a certain amount of money, like, you don't need more money, or you don't even need more purpose, right? Or rather, you need purpose in what you're doing. So you don't need more money, you need human connection. You need the ability to touch lives, uh, and and even that, I would feel that after one point it stops mattering as much, especially with the internet. We are able to touch thousands, millions, billions of lives at once, but we can't actually feel that. Our brain, our psychology, our body can only. So there's a concept called Dunbar's number, uh, where you can only have meaningful human connections with 150 or 200, or that kind of a number of people in the world in your life. And I think that's a fair framework to think about what gives meaning to my, especially as a solo independent creator. What gives meaning to my work? I can understand that somebody like Elon Musk wants to impact 8 billion lives. He wants to take everyone on Mars, and that's what he's trying to do. So these are the ideas that we're wrestling with right now. Where How do we think about society from first principles? How do we make uh, work and money and meaning, all of this work together in a way that most people in the world uh, can do what they want to do. Right? Ultimately, it's about having the ability to spend my time on things that I really want to enjoy, and things that really I feel passionate about. So that's where we are at today. What is it? What do you think, Pran? Did I miss something? And welcome. Sorry for such a long intro.
No,
But
no, don't.
how do we go from here?
That was a great intro. Yeah, I think your intro helped me also recall the past 3 weeks. Our previous
Yeah.
conversation was more at the top of my mind, but I realized that we've discussed so much. Uh,
Yes.
I- as I understand, the place we were at was we established that pyramids are a problem if they keep on growing, and
Yes.
any kind of power, capitalistic or communistic, over time in our society, the way we are seeing it is it
Yes.
has become essentially unidimensional, which is all power has been equated in the same pyramid, and that is what is
Right.
making it troublesome. We discussed why pyramids are troublesome when they grow beyond a proportion. Uh,
Right.
last time when we were trying to, like, after understanding the problem, when we were trying to move away from and build from first principles, we broke down our, I think we started looking at it as, if there is supposed to be these three or four kinds of work in which
Hmm.
you want to follow your passion, you want time with your family, uh, whether kids, whether elders,
Right.
and as well as you need some time while making sure that you have enough money or enough
Yes.
uh, food and security, right? Like that's the
Right.
whole game. The
Essential versus non-essential or luxury work, luxury
Right.
businesses. Yeah, that's how we frame the ideas.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Please go. Please continue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the fundamental way we were attacking this problem, we are saying that majority of life's work should be in activities that are, in a manner of speaking, unrelated to the pyramid. So if you have your essentials paid
Interesting.
for, or taken care of, and you still have time remaining to pursue your passion, why would you want to monetize that passion? Why would you not want
Makes
to
sense.
experiment more? If your poem writing or your carpentry or your ability to research and philosophize, whatever is your passion, is not tied to earning money to put food on the table, as well as maintain security and health
Yes.
of your family, you are now free to pursue your passion and try
Right.
different things, be innovative, learn a thing, not be a master and not be afraid of it. That was one way we were breaking that really unidimensional big pyramid of the society on the luxury side of goods.
Right.
That was
Right.
not still a complete solution. What we had
Yes.
done, that was that now, if you're building from first principles, a key principle is that luxury work or passion related work or relationship related work, all of these things has to be divorced from the pyramid mechanism. It is not
Hmm.
a race at a societal level. These tasks should not be part of the big pyramid. You brought up an
Right.
interesting point around, but money is not the only driving pyramid. So even if you take away money, there
Yes.
could still be games that people want to play around status,
Status games. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the way we had ended up in our discussion, and digging deeper into why these status games would exist and why you would want to pursue them, was really that idea of, which you had eloquently put together, of the reason you want to do your writing is because you at the end care about whether it affected somebody else's life, and that feedback,
Yes.
whether it is, are you getting better and is it touching enough number of lives. And that is what we had discussed about goods of the first kind or first intent, which is
Right.
you care about human connection, you care about making a difference. It is not about status in the sense of accruing more of it. It is getting
Right.
better at your art, making a difference.
Right.
So feeling satisfied because you did something, because you wrote something or you built something, but also feeling satisfied because it actually contributed to the well-being, or changed somebody's perspective, or did something to somebody else, and more of a connection.
Right.
And a great way to cap that is the Dunbar number idea, that if you've
Hmm.
connected to, we had discussed that it is diminishing returns. So you don't need to touch a million lives. The
Hmm.
million to million plus one is not the same level of satisfaction as 2 to 3, or 5 to 6,
Yes.
which
For sure.
means it's meaningful to cap out these status pyramids and say that
Hmm.
if you've touched 150 lives or 100 lives, great, you've created good work. Now move on
Hmm.
and do more, right? Explore more ways of writing a poem, or building the next piece of art that you care about, or
Right.
thinking of the new idea that you care about, and see how that plays out and changes other people's lives. So this is what would keep the machine going. It would guarantee
Hmm.
individual satisfaction without perversing it or making it part of big pyramids. So the pyramids are smaller.
Right.
The new members are now easily entering because they are not intimidated by the best people in the world.
Hmm.
The best
Hmm.
people in the world are willing to help and mentor new people because if that is their passion, if they care about
Right.
other people learning how to write well or how to build well or how to research well, it is not because of transacting extrinsic value, but it is because of
Hmm.
transacting intrinsic value. Uh,
Yes.
and we had a brief discussion around intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation and how that
Yep.
changes things.
Totally.
So
Totally.
that was fantastic. And we ended on the scope that all of this will only continue to work under the assumption that we are able to provide essentials to all members.
Yes.
Otherwise,
Yes.
the
Yes.
thing, the
Yeah.
scheme doesn't work.
How will it actually work out? At a practical level, it all sounds very good, but in theory, but how will it actually work out on the ground? How do we build this from first principles?
Hmm.
With all the knowledge that we have of all our history of thousands of years, we know now what is good, what is bad. Now, if you want to build from first principles, what are the good parts that we bring in, and what are the bad parts that we delete out? Practically, again, yeah,
Practically, yeah,
uh,
right. So I
yeah,
think this is where I can throw some ideas at you, and let's try to rip them apart
yeah.
and let's try to understand
Sure, sure, sure,
whether they make sense or not. Because I don't think I have a
sure,
complete solution. I have some ideas,
sure,
and
sure, sure.
the two of us are trying to understand what is the
Yes,
social code
yes,
through which these ideas work. So
right.
I think I want to take a step back and say, by focusing on the value of this kind of work, which is
Hmm,
following your passion, focusing on relationships, and all these things, we had learned that putting these in the pyramid scheme is going to
hmm,
always perverse the you know the way we pursue them. So taking them
hmm,
out was one of the principles that we applied.
hmm.
When it comes to essential goods, that is food, health, education,
Security.
security,
Hmm,
we cannot leave it to only the folks who are passionate about these things should pursue them.
hmm, hmm.
And I hope I'm not taking too much of a leap, because the understanding is, if you don't have some proportion of your society being poets or being carpenters or being something else, it wouldn't break the society down. But if you don't have some percentage of the people not growing food, not being
Yes,
farmers, or not being
yes,
healthcare workers, we
yes.
will all break down. The society will break down. The individuals will start breaking down.
Accountants. If we don't have enough accountants, our tax system will break down.
Uh, hopefully we don't have to rely on a tax system, and so that we have to create some number of accountants to hold us. I think that
Hey,
those are the pyramid schemes.
I have nothing against accountants. Okay, he has something against accountants.
I
You
definitely
want
have
to take
something
away their
against.
jobs.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I have something against all jobs that have been created just to keep the pyramid going.
Nice, interesting, interesting,
uh,
interesting.
so these
Like
are
it,
these
like
are
it, like it. Yeah.
institutional jobs that keep the pyramid
Don't
going.
don't don't hit the player.
Uh,
Hit the pyramid.
exactly right. If we change the game, we'll have different types of jobs, and hopefully
Yes.
accountants are like people who are musicians and carpenters or poets at heart don't have to be accountants.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. Yes. How do we make that happen?
all right, so I suppose we have to now tackle the pyramid problem more head on,
Yeah.
and in the spirit of looking at the first principles, there are two principles that I want to highlight. When we
Hmm,
moved from hunter gatherer to farmer and farmer to industrial,
hmm,
the way we were growing either in population or providing food and security for everyone, because we've solved that problem by going through
hmm,
those different phases. We
hmm,
made sure that the essentials are being generated or produced at the same
hmm,
level that are needed for
Yes,
sustaining the society. We messed
for
up in
sure.
the distribution of them. So perhaps a part of the problem is how to distribute them. So
People are
what,
dying of hunger, but more people are dying of obesity.
right?
Of eating more food, right? That just sounds crazy
Hmm.
to
So
me right now. Yeah.
exactly. So that essentially is a distribution problem. Like, you might say that, oh,
Yes.
people are dying of obesity because uh, uh, they are not focused on themselves. That is an education problem. They don't understand what they're eating. But you can also argue from a pyramid scheme business of capitalism that, oh, by selling such kind of food, some companies are making more money. So I don't think we need to analyze this. Many people have spoken
Sure,
about
sure,
this.
sure, sure,
We don't need
sure,
to go
sure, sure.
deep into where to lay the blame. I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
essentially think that the pyramid structure is
Hmm.
reinforced by both kinds of behaviors. So
Yes.
let's keep that aside. We are trying to break the pyramid in certain ways, and that is where we have to essentially
Yes.
focus our energy on. So the principle, again, coming back to the principle
Yep.
that worked was there is value in centralizing production of food. So when we move from hunter
Hmm.
gatherer to farmer and from farmer to industrial farmer, there are two ways
Hmm.
we improved productivity. Part one was there are specialization, that is,
Hmm.
there are some percentage of people who were farmers, there are some percentage of people who were protecting, there are some percentage of people who were doctors. So there is specialization, that is, put differently, you are centralizing the production of food in the
Hmm.
society.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
everybody is not responsible for that. And that centralization gives you efficiency. So that's
Hmm.
the key insight. So efficiency comes from centralization. It's not a great
Right.
insight, but that's part of the
Sure.
thing. The second part of the problem is with centralization comes the problem of distribution
Hmm.
and control. So whoever now controls the production or the centralized the ability to distribute this food, now if they live in a capitalistic world, they could use that to ramp up the prices. So monopolies. So the
Yes.
same way monopolies applies to luxury good, it applies to essential goods, and with essential goods it will be worse. The other piece would be, so if you're not in a capitalistic, not revenue driven, if it is power or control over populace driven, it could be feudal ages. That is, if the king
Right.
has everything, as long as people who need food are dependent on that person, they have more power, right? So it
Hmm.
is the way power is essentially defined as control over resources that others want.
Yes.
Uh, and that resource could be anything, it could be some form of capital. So centralization, while it gives us efficiency, it also breeds the pyramid structure. It increases the pyramid structure. The way innovation, so there was a second part, that is from moving from farmer to industrial age, or from agriculture age
Hmm.
to industrial
Hmm.
age,
Hmm.
we saw a lot of innovation. And in that, we may not have reduced the percentage of societal population doing farming, but we increase the productivity of the existing farmers
Yes.
by
Yep.
doing technological innovations. So, and it could be
Exactly.
fertilizers, it could be automated farming mechanisms.
Tractors. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but even the oldest technologies of irrigation system and all of those things, like figuring
For
out
sure.
how this works, and we improve things. So innovation is extremely exciting principle that we should not get rid of. So we have to make sure there is innovation in the system because it increases the productivity of growing things.
Hmm.
The reason it becomes important is it reduces the amount of time that is needed by a person
Hmm.
to grow some amount of food.
Hmm.
Putting these two principles together, one is
Hmm.
if we go for efficiency, what comes along with this at the other side of the coin is the centralization, is the pyramid structure.
Hmm.
Uh, so when we put these things together, it starts to become such that while efficiency is great, we have
Hmm.
to put a cap on it. So that's
Hmm.
basically the insight. Like the same way,
Hmm.
we try to build from first principles of breaking apart luxury goods from
Hmm.
uh, essential goods and taking the luxury goods out of the main pyramid structure. The key
Hmm.
insight
Hmm.
here is you don't want the pyramid structure to build because of
Hmm.
centralization in essential systems.
Right. Right. Right.
Now, when
Right.
I mean we break down the centralizing systems, I don't mean that each person has to grow all the food that they eat, right?
Right.
Because that seems like I think that's the first place where many people tend to jump. I don't think that is sustainable, right? Because one of
Right.
the pieces that we focused on is the idea of specialization, is the idea of innovation. We need both of those things to come together. So there is no great answer that exists, but it's the idea of being able to balance the efficiency with some amount of number of people, some number of people, a tribe, a community, uh, maybe not
Okay.
a nation, right? Maybe a state, some number of people who, in which there is ability to specialize. So let's say it's a community. Let's say we hit the Dunbar number. Let's say it's a community of 150 people. You
Sounds
can
about right.
have 20 people or 25 people who are farmers,
Okay.
right? And with 20 people farming, you can make food for the 150 people.
For sure.
And you can have all these essential uh, goods of teaching,
Hmm.
healthcare, education to be filled in. So, in this way, we can draw a parallel with the old school version of we live in smaller communities. And
Yes.
this is now not because there are less people or is because uh, we have now tried to pull together the best sides of both things, which is we want to use technology to increase productivity, but we also want to make sure that we are not centralizing all the essential items to the extent that it starts to form a pyramid and there is monopoly. So you want that.
So it's an optimized tribe basically. We are tribal beings. We seek, we are tribal in nature at our very core. Right from the hunter-gatherer days, that's how we started. But we want to have the best of modern, technology and efficiency. Basically, what we've learned that when you specialize, when you specialize at what you do, you become better at what you do, and that's good for everybody else. So what you're saying is that uh, in a, let's say it's a tribe of 150 people, 20 of them are farming. What are the other 130 doing? So everyone's doing some essential work only. Is that what you mean? Do the farmers don't do any non-essential luxury work? Do the farmers paint? Is essentially what I'm asking.
So that is an excellent question. I think this is where,
Yeah.
again, stepping back and looking at the place, I, I think we had this discussion during the transition from agriculture to industrial phase and said that, oh,
Yeah.
if the farmer is doing farming for everybody, then they're not free to do anything else, right? So the
Yes. Yes.
idea is we are not putting big numbers there, but the idea is if 20 farmers can working full time can
Yeah.
produce food for everyone, we would rather have 40 farmers, such that everybody has to work only a percentage of time, right? So
Okay.
the forcing or the governance mechanism here
Mm-hmm.
really comes from the idea that the cap should not be on generation of capital or the
Mm-hmm.
generation of essential goods by
Mm-hmm.
going to one extreme of specialization by putting one person only for that. It should, the governance mechanism should come really from the focus on each member of the tribe should be spending, let's say, 40% of their time doing essential work. And by essential work, it means work that is essential for the community,
Yes.
right? So they could be a doctor, they could be a teacher, they could be a sewage worker. It would be awesome
Mm-hmm.
if we can. So let me not jump ahead. There's a second idea I want to bring in here.
Yeah.
Let me try to build this and see if it jives with you. So
Yeah.
the role of technology then becomes to reduce the time needed for each of these 40 farmers to generate the amount of food that is needed, and understand that we are not trying to do just in time that, oh, we've grown food and we've used that much food enough. We are still going back to the old principles of we should have food security, we should have these things. So the growing things you could have surplus, right? So
Mm-hmm.
using technology to improve our yields, but not so much so that it's about accruing power over other
Mm.
things. So this is, I'm not even talking about that you need to trade outside to get more money in. You can send
Mm-hmm.
food, you should have surplus food such that if a neighboring tribe has less food, you can send it over,
Yes.
right? Or you can
Yes.
send over your farmers and essentially like an exchange student or an exchange worker professional in which they can go
Nice.
there and use technology and help them improve their things,
Learn from them. Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
from them. So this is a very classic knowledge transfer mechanism that we study in, like, where I come from, in management schools, of knowledge
Right.
transfer and how organizations learn from each other, and improve their efficiency over time. So the communities rely on each other not because they are in interdependent trade, in a game theoretic
Hmm. Hmm.
trade
Hmm.
types of
Hmm. They're not competing
transaction.
with each other, or yeah,
Right. So
in some other.
if you
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
enough
Hmm.
and you have more surplus, the
Hmm.
current way, if you are in a pyramid, the current way of thinking is, how can I sell this to the highest bidder?
Yes.
But let us break that down. Let us understand why is that thought process coming about. It is because that is
Okay.
focused on accruing power. So the
Yes.
big change that essentially would be needed, and this is where I think uh, the whole system relies on one form of idealism, is
Hmm.
that this is how, this is something that I have a saying for myself, which is the best use of power is to distribute it.
Ah, I love it. Hmm.
the Not in the sense that if you have the power, then you give it to others, and the best use of power is to distribute it, in the sense that your surplus power should not be exercised to control others. It should be
Hmm.
exercised to you know lift others. So the pyramid
Yes.
essentially is formed, and it continues to form, is when people at the top of the pyramid want more power or more control. And this is the fundamental piece, which is like, if some humans are wired to do that, then that happens. But that's not all humans are wired to do that. Some humans are also wired in the direction of, if they have power, then they want to lift other people. So
Yes.
then it now becomes a governance and an education problem of
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
who have this kind of power,
Hmm.
even within their tribes. One,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
there should not be uh, there should be mechanisms to not make it unidimensional, which is the same person who has power over food should not also have power over other resources, right? So there
Right.
should be multiple people with similar types of power. So that's where, if somebody on top is sitting who wants to gather all the power, there is a natural mechanism to break it down, or a natural mechanism to cap how much power they can wield in a society.
Yes.
The other piece comes on the education side, is in being able to understand or build a society in which the incentive structure, or the natural way a human understands the use of power, changes.
Hmm.
So the game
Hmm.
is not who has the most resources. The game is, are we the most resilient species? Are we the most resilient
Ah,
community? Right? So the game,
right.
the base game that you're playing at a societal level, needs to change. So now this is where I'm saying
Right.
that this is too idealistic, because we need to
Yeah.
bring it back
Yeah.
in. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. No, no. So I'm just asking. We have 40 farmers feeding 150 people. Probably, let's say we have 60 soldiers protecting these people. Right? Do we need, in an ideal world, do we need that many soldiers and that many farmers, or let's bring in some modern trades? So let's say
Hmm.
software engineers. Like, how many software engineers do we need, or how many managers do we need, or how many, do we still need accountants to account for everything that what everyone's doing? Will there be a money system in there? Will there be a currency to signify that you are a farmer and you have provided so much value to the community? That's why you should have some, there should be some incentive, right? What's the incentive that's driving these people in a community to work for the community?
Hmm.
And again, once you define that incentive, doesn't like the measure become the target,
Hmm.
and everyone starts to do whatever, optimize their life and work to do whatever, maximizes that incentive,
Hmm.
is the question that I'm having right now. How
Excellent.
do you think about
No,
that?
these are excellent questions, because I was veering towards a more idealistic thing, and so
Yes.
So let's try to build out the system. So in this system,
Yeah.
if we want, as you said, some number of farmers, some number of software developers, uh, the goal of a governance system here in
Yeah.
let's keep our discussion to a community instead of the whole
Sure.
society. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
so within this community, the goal of the governance system, unlike the current spectrum of capitalism, communism,
Hmm.
is to establish two things. One is power is not getting concentrated within any
Mm-hmm.
member, right?
Hmm.
So the pyramid is short, right? The height of the pyramid is low. And the second part is the members are able to incentivize essential goods. So recognize and incentivize production of essential goods that the community needs. So not one person may not understand what the whole community needs, but as a community we might be able to understand that this is the total amount of food that needs to be created. Currently we have n
Hmm.
numbers of farmers working for x number of hours, and this year this was the rainfall, or something else, something is there. You have a sense of how much we are growing, how much surplus we need. So as a community we understand that we have x amount of need and we are hitting this
Hmm.
target or not. And if you're not hitting the
Hmm.
target, then the community needs to incentivize more people to do farming, right? So instead of 40,
Hmm.
you might need 45. Some other time
Yes.
when there is
Exactly.
very high level of things, you bring it down. So this now
Yes.
becomes really, because now the resources, the essential resources, are more are divorced from status games, are divorced from luxury, are divorced from the
Yes.
need to you know have more profits. It is now simply about sufficiency, right? The community needs a mechanism to define what is sufficient,
Hmm.
right? And
Exactly.
how much are we at currently? So this is where I think it would be a mistake between you and
Hmm.
me or anyone to say that we have the right answer for what is sufficient, right?
Hmm.
This is where the governance mechanism, like the community has to decide what is sufficient. So some
Hmm.
community might come up with, we need to have x amount of food per person or per child or per adult.
Yes.
A neighboring community might come out with x plus 5. It's some other number, right? And they're both correct in their perspective. There is no one correct answer. So in that sense, if
Yes.
you have surplus, the surplus is simply based on, so the value systems of two different communities may not be directly comparable, and that
Hmm.
would be okay because it's the same problem as within the community. The value system of different people may not be compatible. So some might think
Yes.
I need
Yes.
more
Yes.
food, while others might think I need less food. So the governance mechanism still has to solve the problem of figuring out what is our level of essentials, right? So
Yes.
the reason I'm
The
being
that's my Yeah, that's my thing, that the governance mechanism that we come up with, let's say these 150 people living in these communities together,
hmm,
come up with, okay, these are the 15 elders of our society and they will govern the system.
hmm,
Then it basically becomes that you're optimizing for the biases of these 15 people, right? It becomes like a senate or a kingdom where there's a uh, I just fear that we're going back to all the problems that we've already seen in our history,
hmm, hmm,
where we're moving from a tribal to an agricultural kingdom based society. Just that, not necessarily farmers, but there are software engineers as well, there are managers as well. uh, you know there are these modern trades as well now, but the community approach seems still to be like, how do we get rid of those problems
okay,
that
excellent
we've
question.
seen? Yeah.
Excellent question. I think
Yeah.
another first principles that we have to figure out, just the way I was talking about centralizing and efficiency, has
Right.
two sides of the coin. That you get efficiency on one side, but you also get uneven distribution on the other side. The same way, the
Right.
problem that you said, that there are some number of elders, or there's a senate, or there is something of that
Right.
sort, that becomes a problem when your community, the society, the size of the society at which the decision is happening is too big. So we
Right.
don't have true democracies. We have representative democracies, which are democracies of a
Yes.
kind, but they're still representational, which means we
Yes.
choose representatives who vote for certain things.
Choose.
And
Yes.
in many ways, it is not just a single. step, it is 3 steps or 4 steps.
Yes, for
So
sure.
the actual decision making is happening at multiple levels of deeper representation. I don't think I have any
Right.
problem with representation. What I'm trying to bring up here is, if the size of the community is too big, the only efficient way of generating a governance mechanism is through representational democracy.
Yes.
While representational democracy itself is not a problem, so you might want your uh, medical issues be uh, you might want to give your vote to somebody who understands medical issues better, a doctor, uh, and say that whatever you decide, I'm happy to go with it. That is a representational thing. So whatever you recommend, I'm going. So you're putting
Hmm.
your vote in the hands of an expert or a localized
Right.
expert, right? So that
Right.
is perfectly fine. The second piece that happens when you grow the size of the community too far in
Hmm.
representative democracy is that the representative at
Hmm.
multiple layers above is highly disconnected from the common man or the man on the ground who has given up
Yes.
their representation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the
Yes.
idea of keeping it a community
Small.
to a Dunbar number or even smaller is essentially coming from that over time you will have like real knowledge of, I am not representing 500 constituents of my
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
municipality or of my
Yeah.
district or of of something. I am representing these people who know
Right.
you directly and you know them directly, right? So the layers of representation go down, as well as
Hmm.
the personal connection comes into play. So this is where you
Yes.
are leveraging man a social animal aspect of things and building it,
Yes.
baking it into governance. The only way this
Yes.
starts to break is when you
Hmm.
try to scale it
Yes.
as the same system. You don't want to scale it as the same system. You want to scale it as, let's have multiple pockets of things
Yes.
of this kind.
That's where I like the idea of city states a lot, where basically individual cities act as countries themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and they and if you go back in history, then city states were more more better functional, more effective for the well-being of the individual, as well as the tribe themselves.
Mm-hmm.
My only problem with that is that uh, how do you stop them from growing? Because uh, or rather the people who are making decisions, how do you incentivize them to not grow their influence or
Mm-hmm.
not grow their power again? Because the moment you have a system of 150 people, 15 of them are the elders of society who are
Mm-hmm.
running it, or who are making the most important decisions. How do you tell them that don't go out and capture the next tribe, the next community living 10 100 feet next to you, uh, and increase your influence, increase your
Mm-hmm.
power, and then you will have 30 people, 300 people that you could be making
Mm-hmm.
decisions for.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I think the fundamental feature that we're talking about is the size. Is that if all of society could be limited to or close to a certain number, then things would function well. And to me, it looks like that's how we started, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then everyone started, getting hungry for power, and and wanting to scale everything that they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the problems started coming in. Uh, my question is, what will prevent that now? Uh, that we know that the smaller communities would function good, would function well,
Mm-hmm.
but how do we? Because humans act on incentive.
Mm.
Right? We can't rely on good intention.
Okay,
you
so
know,
this
yeah,
is an excellent question. So I think
yeah,
the fact that you said we know problems or situations are more manageable in smaller communities, I think I want to say this is the perhaps first time in the life cycle of human society that we can say
okay,
that we know that, right? Because we were small in the beginning as hunter gatherers.
yes,
that did not mean we knew that being small is better than being large. So we had to grow large to realize
Yes.
that the large is not working. And we are
Yes.
currently in that flux, right?
Yes.
We went from small tribes capturing more resources. So more is always better. I don't think we as a human species or society has still learned that lesson. Most of us are still working on that premise that more is always better, right?
Yep.
And in the abstract sense, this is not any different from the problem that we are talking about in the luxury businesses. Oh, if you take away money, I will still have status, and more likes are still
Yes.
better, right?
Yes.
But if we are able to, through our own conversation, come to the conclusion that, oh, more has diminishing returns, so
Yes.
more might be slightly better, but I have to also see the trade-off of what am I giving up for that. You're giving up your
Yes.
ability to experiment, to follow these things in the luxury business, right? Because if
Yes.
you're always after maintaining your rank, then
Yes.
you're not after experimenting. You're always going after low
Yes.
hanging fruits. You're always going after hyper
Yes.
optimizing for an outcome. So whatever
Yes.
you measure then becomes the target. But you've taken away that target by understanding that more is maybe not always better. Larger is maybe not always
Right.
better. There is a
Right.
larger size that would be better than the current smaller size. I'm not saying
Yes.
that we know that 150 is the correct number. Maybe it is 50, maybe it is 100. Maybe depending on
Sure.
the type of region, location that you live in, the type of
Ah.
activity that you contribute to. So it's I don't really like thinking about this analogy, too deeply because it does not exactly apply. But think of it as if it is a human body, your heart and your lungs are not the same size. Uh, so
Uh,
depending on,
Interesting.
there is some function, there are some surpluses that you're building based on your geographic location, based on these things. So each tribe is more adapted
Swimmers have
to its
longer
own people.
hands than other people. Yeah.
Right. So,
uh,
in a manner of speaking, the idea is not, you're right, it does not solve the problem of if the person in power within the tribe has grandiose ambitions. So, and you said people work on incentives. My question to you is, what is the incentive here? The incentive here, uh, perhaps you have some insight. Like, I want to ask you, what is the incentive here? If the goal is sufficiency, what is the incentive for somebody in
I
power to be, I want to now also have the other 150 people or whatever is the next tribe?
I think it's a massive education problem because the way we are brought up, uh, the way we are taught everything, is that more is better. So
Hmm.
eventually, the products of our education system are the people who
Mm-hmm.
want more money, who want more power, who want to wield that power over larger swathes of society, and again, status games or money games.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think my thinking right now is limited to that even my questions that I'm coming up with are around that these 15 people will become power hungry, will become money hungry, and will eventually lead to the same things. But uh, if we're able to educate them
Hmm.
and explain the idea of sufficiency,
Mm-hmm.
explain the idea of community living, explain the idea of Dunbar's number, of everything that is spoken about so far, uh, the products of that system will probably respect uh, and will not become power hungry or status hungry, and will not go out warring with other tribes,
Mm-hmm.
uh, is what I'm thinking. Because I don't, what will be the incentive in that system is uh, the greater good, but
Mm-hmm.
only for these many people.
Mm-hmm.
uh, right, that but uh, people say that even when they're fighting wars for a country of 1 billion people, right, that I'm doing this for the greater good. That's what the guy who dropped the atomic bomb said, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I am that's what he believed. I think that for himself, that I'm doing this for the greater good, for my country, for my people. Anyways, not getting political, not going there, but uh, I think we somehow need to educate people that uh, sufficiency is in there's value in sufficiency, there's value in limiting, uh, and uh, yeah, the incentive somehow has to be the good of this small tribe without the harm of anybody, or without the harm of an external tribe, or that seems like too complex a problem to solve.
No,
uh,
so I think you bring up exciting points. I wholeheartedly agree that it is a sort of an education problem. But I want to push back on some of the ideas that you're giving.
yeah,
One
sure.
is I think it would be my personal stance that it is a mistake to take a paternal stance that we have to educate the others, right? It's a self-education
Of
problem.
course,
So let's not
of
think
course.
about being paternalistic that we have to educate everybody that community living is better
Sure, sure.
because that assumes you have enough power that other people listen to you. I
No,
think we
I
have
only
to.
say that because we're thinking from first principles, we're building this from scratch.
Mhm.
So in a way, we are taking a paternalistic stance that we have the ability to build the whole society from scratch, from zero. So I'm
No,
just going on that. Yeah.
okay, makes sense. So perhaps a perspective shift might help. We are taking a designer's or an engineer stance that we want to
Yes.
build from first principle. We don't know whether it will be successful,
Yes.
but
Yes.
what we also want to do whenever you have a design brief or you have an engineering things, you have some constraints. So one of the constraints here is we should not assume that in any sphere, be it in business or governance or
Hmm.
education,
Hmm.
you have one person who has a lot of control over everything,
Hmm.
which means there are multiple diverse points of views that will exist. Humans,
Hmm.
will have different points of views. Our challenge is two part. One is to create a governance structure such that on average most people are getting the best distribution of work or activity
Hmm.
in their day, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
That's yeah.
what that involves essentially is also helping people to understand what that distribution looks like for them,
Hmm.
right? And that is an education problem. So I agree with you, that is an education problem. But a secondary education problem, as you started to bring up, was that community living is good. I think I'm trying to recall what you said because that was quite both profound and helpful. You said, oh, in our current system, we are meant to think that more is better.
Hmm.
I think the place where that comes from, and call me out if I'm wrong here. I think that place where
Hmm.
it comes from is because we live in pyramids, we tend to focus on what we don't have. So part of the pyramid where we are low. For some people it is food, for some people it is education, for some people it is opportunity, and we think
Hmm.
that the more we get,
Hmm.
the easier our lives will become, or the better or more fulfilling our lives will become. So the pyramid forces most percentage of the population at the bottom of the pyramid. And growing up, we build our morals or our principles around how the society works with I need more, I need more, I need more of something.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some
Hmm.
very small percentage who really are at the top have then a sort of perspective of the world in which they think that they know better, even if they are young kids who may not have seen or empathize with the young kids who don't have enough, right?
Sure.
So, and that's purely coming from what they've seen. So,
Yes.
is it wrong? Maybe, but they are a product of their environment.
Yes.
What I'm basically saying is that if most percentage of the society always grows up in an environment where they
Hmm.
think we need more, they'll end up with the
Hmm.
philosophy of more is better. And some small
Yes.
percentage will always be like they want to be the ruling class in one way or the form,
Yes.
or they know better.
Yes.
And this could be
Yes.
even in knowledge. So like in old Indian context, it is the Brahmins or the Pandits who had an air of
Yeah.
superiority because they thought they know better, uh, and that somehow gave them more power. Like they knew more about certain things does not mean they know more about everything. It's the same problem
Yes.
in a capitalistic society. Somebody who has a lot of money may have you know a lot of opportunities or a lot of exposure to do different things does not mean they are the best person to do those things. I'm straying away. So bringing it back,
Hmm.
the subtle perspective shift, if I may offer here, is not that more is better, is that our education system has to help each person not
Mhm.
only recognize part one, how to be contributive to your community, which is
Hmm.
be a good social neighbor, do your essential tasks, build a skill that is essential to the community.
Yes.
Number two, what does their passion look like, or what does the distribution of their work look like? How much time do they want to you know
Hmm.
spend on trying out carpentry or trying out poetry or trying out these things? So part two. But part three, which is more relevant here, is also to focus on understanding and shifting the perspective from not more is better, but how much is sufficient. So
Uh,
you may still have less and you may still
hmm.
aspire for more. But
Hmm.
if you've always grown up
Mhm.
with the meta or rather the abstract lesson that is always given to you in each situation in society or in each competition or in something, is that you need more. You'll end up with going after
That's the
more.
background music of your life.
Exactly, right?
The
Like, so
ba-
that's the meta lesson and like the abstract lesson
yeah,
that each situation is telling
yeah,
you. You have never considered how much is enough. You've always focused on
yes,
I need more, I need more. And at some point,
yes,
even if you
yes,
have enough, your
yes,
your base instinct has not changed. This is where the education
yes,
system really comes into play,
yes, yes.
right? So the
So,
education
so
system really is,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
continue. You continue. You continue. You continue. Yeah, sorry.
No, no,
Continue.
I was just going to summarize. So like we are really
Yeah, please,
putting
please
a
do.
lot
Then
on
I have to
the
make 2 points. Yeah, continue. Yeah, I'll say it after.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, so we're really putting a lot of clarification on the role of an education system in such a society is
Hmm.
quite crucial. The whole system,
Hmm.
so society starts to collapse if we don't have an education system that can cater to all three needs, which is how to
Hmm.
be a good social member, contributing to
Hmm.
your community.
Hmm. Hmm.
Two, that is not all who you are. You are your own person.
Hmm.
You need to figure
Hmm.
out who you are
Hmm.
and that part of it. And number
Hmm.
three, if even through intrinsic motivations, you figure out that I
Hmm.
want to be the master of the world, right? You
Hmm.
need to define what master of the world is and
Hmm.
why that is not supposed to be control over others,
Yes.
right? Some form of more, right? Like
Yes.
understand where the cap is and why that cap has an impact on other people. So it is not just
Yes.
independently teaching each of these three types of education, but also
Yes.
how these three things come together.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
essentially the summary. I have not answered one question, that is how money plays a role in this, and I'm happy
Yeah.
to jump into that discussion. But you said you had two more
Yeah. I have
questions.
less. I just had two realizations when you're speaking. So
Hmm.
this idea of going after more, and at some point, the other perspective that how much is enough. So that was like one fundamental idea that fundamental insight that I had a couple of years ago, that eventually made me shift my career totally, change my life totally.
Hmm.
That I don't need more of this. Whatever this corporate job is giving me for the last 8, 9, 10 years is giving me a lot of money. It's giving me a lot of status. It's in some ways giving me a lot of influence, if not power. But I can't keep running after more and more of this. There's more to life. There's something else to life. The shift that I don't need as much of it. I can
Hmm.
live with very very less. uh, so I need to figure out a way uh, to say that this is enough. And now I'm doing this other thing that gives more meaning to my life. uh, that perspective shift is what eventually helped me jump, uh,
Hmm.
make the jump from if you go back and use that term, from the worker class to the owner class.
Hmm.
And I think that perspective shift is what we need uh, to teach, again taking a particular view, but we need to inculcate in our education system, and again tying that with the idea of community living, how much is more for a community rather than an individual. Right, so my first idea was, that's where I called you up and we started this conversation, this whole podcast, is that uh, I'm doing this, why are we not doing this at scale? Why society is not doing this at scale? And I think the answer to that would somewhere be that we can't do this for 1 billion people, but we can do this for 1 million communities, maybe. Or a few million communities within their own self-sustaining systems. They can do this where. Uh, so it doesn't have to be. The problem starts coming in when we want to scale a solution that has worked for one person across so many people. If we only think about groups of people and try to solve the problem for each individual group in their own context, because I have solved it individually in my own context, looking at my own skills, looking at my own interests and passions, and I'm trying to solve it only in my own circle. But if I did this with 100 people, I think we could make it work in an interesting manner. So that excites me, and that basically uh, you know is a good bold underline on what I have already had an epiphany or a realization previously.
So that is fantastic.
Yeah,
Can I pause
yeah.
and highlight
Sure, sure,
a thing
sure,
here?
sure, sure.
So uh, that is that is really exciting, because
Yeah.
if you've come to that same realization in some number of years that
Yes.
I don't want more of X, but
Yes.
the current society, like the way this becomes a problem, and the reason I'm like we've gone through this entire circle is your current solution was to completely jump out of the worker class into
Yes.
a owner class, or running a business, and possibly a luxury business.
Yes.
you've you've only changed the modality in which you are existing in the society. You've not
Yes.
changed the game that you're playing. So
Yes.
now that you're a business owner, you're still not
Yep.
free to completely do whatever you would want to
Yep.
explore, right? The way you want to, right? Because you have to now provide for your food and security by doing this work. And all
Yes.
your rational choices, all your intelligence is now directed to optimizing how to best generate value using your
Yep.
passion based skills,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
not what you
Yes.
would be doing with your passion based skills
Yes.
if you didn't have to worry about that. So ideally, if our current society allowed you to work for 10 hours a week in the
Yep.
same job and pay you one fourth of your salary, then
Yep.
what you would be doing on the side would be very different, right? But that option does
Yes.
not exist, and in a
Yes.
way what we are trying to build is that. So like the realizations are all there, but there is no escape. Does this make
Yes.
sense? So like even in the owner class,
Totally.
you are better off than other people. But my question is, for how long? And will all the owners
Yes.
be that way, right? Like the problem
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
set for ourselves is most people should be able to get out of it, and the current system would not allow,
Exactly.
right? So
Yes. Yes.
that is
Totally. Totally.
fantastic. I really like that.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Okay.
The only, before we wrap up, I think we're close to wrapping up. The other only thing I want to address is that there may be a bit of confirmation bias here. That both of us think in certain ways, and so that's why we're probably not addressing something. We have some blind spots, I believe, that viewers might come in, which relates to. Uh, there are all these biases and limitations to our own thinking. Uh, in an education system or in a system where we want more people to think about community living or think more about how much is enough, instead of going more and more, uh, is this urge for more hardwired into our brains? Is this like a bias that we cannot get over ever, or is it something that you can teach or educate out of is this instinctive that we cannot fight, or is this something that you can educate out of individuals and help them think better?
Mhm.
uh, uh, is essentially my question, and then we can just wrap it up, I guess.
I
What do you think?
that's a good question, and I think I also want to have some comments on the use of money here before we wrap it up.
Sure, sure, sure.
So for this one, I think earlier in this conversation you mentioned that the need for more is driven by incentives, and I was
Yes.
the way we walked through this thing was the way we've hardwired ourselves. So the nurture
Hmm.
aspect of it for need for more comes from growing up in a pyramid structure.
Hmm.
So if you're not coming up in such an intense pyramid structure, if you're coming up in a structure in which you have multiple small pyramids and each
Hmm.
pyramid has a de facto, you know, top edge that you cannot break the ceiling for,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
then what you've seen here is you can win the race by essentially like a gaming thing, reach the top of multiple pyramids over your time, right? Become good at
Hmm.
carpentry, become good at poem, become good at growing food, become good at some level of
Coding, become good
coding, right? Right. So
at nursing. Yeah.
that would be, in a manner of speaking, a great use of one of the core features that humans have, that is general intelligence, right?
Yes, we are
You
all generalists.
right. So you
Specialization is for ants. Yeah.
yeah, no, no. I think specialization is awesome. Mastery is amazing, and you should
Yes.
not stick to one type of mastery,
I know. I know. I know. I know.
right? You
Yeah.
could do
Yeah.
many things. If you choose to do one
Yes.
type of a thing,
Yes.
that choice
Yes.
still exists. It is not
Yes.
enforced by the social structure that unless you are the
Yes.
top of your pile, you cannot earn
Yeah.
a living, right? So that is allowed. I don't think so. This is where it is a hypothesis, and I think it is an assumption. I think some percentage of humans will have an intrinsic need for more. But
Yes.
for the majority of the society, the need for more is more
Hmm.
nurture based, which is if they've grown up in a type of social structure, they will have that. As designers or as
Okay.
engineers of social systems, what we want to do is we want to build a system in which most people are able
Hmm.
to make the choice or get nurtured into an environment where they are looking for their sufficiency.
Hmm.
Some people will have the intrinsic need, and that is where the education system or that is where the social structure or sanctioning mechanisms will come into play. uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
and this really at this point is a hypothesis. I don't think we can make a claim that that
For
will
sure.
always
For
be.
sure. That's of
uh,
course. Of
so
course. Of
and I
course.
think before we close, the one final piece, I think the role of money.
Yeah.
I I was not saying, because we've not discussed this, I'm not anticipating that in such a system there will be no money. The money will be part of the essential systems governance structure, which
Hmm.
means the way the so you want market mechanics, because market mechanics
Hmm.
pushes for supply demand, which is if we want more farmers, how do we incentivize more people to farm more, right? What we are essentially asking for not is now not that a person starts to become a farmer and they're 100% of their time farmer. What we are
Hmm.
asking is, if you spend 5 hours farming, you are likely to make X amount of money, which will get you in this
Hmm.
community your
Hmm.
UBI equivalent salary. By
Right.
increasing the
Hmm.
hourly rate of being a farmer or the
Hmm.
product, whatever is the output base, by increasing that within your
Hmm.
within the bounds of your
Hmm.
community,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
are incentivizing more
Hmm.
people to do
Hmm.
farming,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if they
Hmm.
produce more,
Yes.
they are very likely to get rewarded more. And then this interacts with the sufficiency modularity, is if they think
Hmm.
farming is giving them enough money
Hmm.
to be sufficiently, have sufficient funds for their family,
Hmm.
then they will do it for some number of hours. But suddenly, if some other profession, some other essential work comes online that is now getting
Mhm.
paid more for, there will be some
Hmm.
incentives for some people who are generalist or
Hmm.
have multiple skills to transition from one to the other, because then they have to work less, to earn the same amount of outcome. So none of the system works unless there is some level of clarity within families. So we don't expect all kids to have that, right? But within families. So this is the second level of cohorts within a community, within families, to have some sense of what is sufficient, like UBI equivalent money that they need to have, and how are they generating it with minimum number of hours worked within the community that is being provided. So the market mechanics is a fantastic mechanic. We should not
Yes.
get rid of it. So money still
Yes.
applies, and money should be
Yes.
used by the
Yes.
community to essentially adapt to its changing needs.
Yes.
So if
Yes.
some year,
Yes.
as we were discussing, some year if harvest is low, or if some year uh, you don't have, you know, uh, enough sewage workers, like if we don't have
Yes.
infrastructure for sewage workers, right? How do we incentivize that?
Yes.
This brings up many more issues. We've not solved all issues. What about national infrastructure? What about these things? A
Yes.
big part when we talk about social change is we are building these mechanisms from first principles, but a big
Yes.
part where I come from in management theory is a part called change management, which is you have your system or your organization in the current state and you have an ambition to be in this other state. How do you transition from A to B? We have been talking about what is a good B.
Yes.
A completely different problem is how do you transition from A to B?
Oh.
I just want to make sure that we are not overreaching our claims, that we are
That's a
not trying
very,
to
very
say
hard
how
problem to solve.
there, but this is, we want to create food for thought on, will these first principles make sense
Yes.
as we think about what a more sustainable, more reliable, or more resilient society structure would look like. Uh, yeah, this has been an exciting conversation, and I'm happy to hear
Yes.
more
Yes. Love it. Love it. Love it.
poking holes or alternate ideas. Uh,
Yes. For sure.
what do you think with this? So I think before we close, I want to get your perspective on the whole picture. So with this kind of an
Ah,
essential structure, which is market based but limited by size, and
yes.
the pyramid is broken across. So some people might still be more rich than others, but the being rich is not really the point, because everybody is equally rich because they have a percentage of their time or their life
Yes.
to do what they need to do, which is non-pyramid activities.
Yes.
And the luxury businesses are now not businesses, but luxury activities that people are free to
Yes.
engage in and choose from. As this
Yes.
thing put together, do you think this is like coming back to the original question you said you want more people to have more of this kind of a life? Will such a
Yes.
society have that?
Yeah. So just yeah, I'm just looking back at the last 4 weeks, and I think it's about. I love aspects from every part of our history. I'm a big fan of tribal communities, close knit groups of people living together. I think we are becoming very distant these days. Very isolated. We live very isolated lives. I don't think that's healthy for us. So I like that part very much, but I see the problems with that part. I really like the market mechanics parts that we have, that we have incentive systems, and people go after them, and people so I like that part as well. I like the part where where there are certain people with more experience or more skill, who are there, you know taking decisions, or rather making decisions for a certain group of people. I think if we don't have you know senates, or I hate politicians, but if we don't have some people taking some decisions for the rest of us, then we'll have chaos. So I want that as well, and I like those parts in some way. So it feels like what you're coming towards is basically like picking and choosing the best pieces from different parts of our history, right from the hunter-gatherer days to the modern knowledge age, and we're applying those best parts to this new Frankenstein Frankenstein like system that we want to create. It's probably a utopian world. Don't want to draw an ugly picture of a Frankenstein, but probably a utopian world that we want to create. Utopian social structure, the utopian social code that we want to create, while eliminating all that's wrong with every system that is there. I think that's what I like about it the most. If somebody would have said that you can only grow from here, that you have to move to another planet to live a better life, that would have been disturbing to me. So
Excellent.
I like that
I
they're
think
going back. Yeah.
your summary is making me think of if Elon Musk takes a lot of us, figures out how to take a lot of us to Mars, we
Yeah.
wouldn't be replicating, we wouldn't want to replicate the same governance structure there.
Yes.
But what
That's actually a good way to think about it.
but the conclusion, I think the abstract conclusion I'm coming to, and give me some leeway here, is that while in the first two, or maybe even in the third episode, we were coming to the conclusion that the pyramids are bad and they've worked in certain ways that really mess things up. The insight that I'm coming to, and is perhaps maybe different, pyramid mechanisms are great mechanisms, but they should be deployed in service of society. The society should not be a pyramid.
Yes.
So the pyramids are great tools, but if the tool becomes the master or takes over the master, essentially society or human species, then it's a problem. So I think now I think pyramids should exist, but they should be deployed in microcosms of function outcomes for essential work or for these other things. Excellent. I'm quite happy about this.
Very happy. I think the only thing that is left now is how do we almost all problems arise from having a twisted education system is what I think.
No,
I don't know. do we touch that?
I think
least.
let's not try to put all our eggs in the same basket. I think that the social structure has to do a lot with it, but
sure.
I'm with you. I think having an education system that can help change or help create a perspective towards society that is not the way we are currently set up. And we both know the ways education system is currently failing in even in the current structure. So I think that I'll be happy to pick up that as the next topic of discussion, as to maybe focus on how it is failing now, and then go back and ask what should the education system look like, perhaps for the kind of work society we built in this episode, or just in general, like just to satisfy what we have done now.
For sure.
Going on. So sounds like
I think education is the natural step to our conversation, where we where we talk about how things can how we can bring next generations to think differently than they're thinking, or right now, or probably like focus more on what's wrong right now, and then move towards how it can be fixed.
Totally. Fantastic. I want to say thank you, Ayush. This was a fascinating conversation over the past 4 weeks. I hope you enjoyed it, and folks who listen to this sometime later also enjoy it as much as much as we enjoyed it. All right.
We did.
This is great.
Yes. Fantastic. Thank you for time, Pranav, and everyone listening. Bye. Have a nice day. Good night. Good morning, wherever you are. Cheers.
See you, everyone.